Hi, welcome. Today we're going to talk a little bit about coaching as a concept and as a philosophy that not only will help you as a professional, but it's going to help you as a leader, and it's going to help you just be a better human being. I'm here with Michael Moore again.
Russ, it's great to see you again. I appreciate the opportunity to talk. So in your professional life, you are a leadership coach, you're an executive coach. So can you tell us a little bit about what the difference is between a coach and a mentor or a manager?
Yeah, that's a great question because they are very different. So just to give you a little context, I've been coaching professionally for 20 years now. For 20 years, I really have seen a very consistent approach to coaching, and I've used a consistent approach to coaching, which takes the mystery out of it. I think that if you have an opportunity to get some training in coaching, if you have an opportunity to bring coaching to your culture, bring it to your company, your organization, and the more people that practice this, the better humanity is going to be. It's different than counseling. It's about people in the present and the past, right? Well, coaching is about people in the present and the future. And a key philosophy around this is that when you're doing coaching, you have the mentality that the people you're working with or the people you're talking to, they're creative, resourceful, and whole. Meaning they're creative to solve their own problems. Your job is not to solve their problems. Your job is to help them be creative about solving their problems. They're resourceful, meaning that they can find the resources they need in order to be successful with whatever challenge that or opportunity they have in front of them. And they're whole, meaning they're healthy, right? If we walk into any meeting and think someone's not creative enough to solve their own problems, or someone's not resourceful enough to find what they need to solve the problems, or that they're not healthy, or they're not whole, or that there's something else going on, that we're not going to be able to ask the powerful questions and really kind of get into things in a deeper way. So the assumption that I make is that when I'm coaching anybody, whether it's somebody that comes up to me and has a casual conversation about a challenge or an opportunity, or if it's somebody that's really deep in, like I have this really important decision to make, or whatever it's going to be, I approach it that way. Now, if in any instance that I don't think those three things are there, then they probably don't need to be coached. They probably need something else, and they probably need to think about it, or they need to kind of work on being in those three spaces. So to answer your question, the difference between managing, coaching, and mentoring are vastly different. So let me just tell you what management is, right? Management is that we have to control things, we have to organize things, we have to plan things, and we have to kind of give instructions about what to do. We have to do that. That's part of the formula here, right? It is managing what's going on, managing people to do those things, and it's executing on those things. And we're gonna do that most of our day. Mentoring is different in the fact that mentoring is when you're mentoring somebody, you are probably explaining to them how you do things, what your approach to things are. Mentoring looks like, well, this is how I would do it. This has been my experience. This is how I got promoted. This is how I would handle a problem. This is right. It's kind of like it's sharing your experience with people. Extremely powerful stuff. And mentoring also means you have the responsibility of being an advocate for them. So if you're in a mentoring conversation, right, you would say, I'm advocating for you now. I'm gonna tell you what I would do. I'm gonna listen to you. It looks kind of like coaching, but it's not as much listening, and it's a little bit more of explaining and helping people kind of move to action in some way. And you're going to do that part of your day. With coaching, the philosophy is totally different. Again, they're creative, resourceful, and whole. They're coming to you, and what you want to do is create that safety. You want to listen for values. You want to listen deeply. It's certainly many different levels, right? You want to ask powerful questions. You want to look for contradictions, right? And you're going to deal with their gremlins or their saboteurs or their little lawyers in their head that are telling them different things, right? And you're kind of sorting all that out with them. But you're doing it mostly by listening and guiding them through a thought process, right? Always open-ended questions, always putting the onus on them. A good coach will listen probably 90% of the time and ask questions and guide them through some of that conversation, right? And getting them to a deeper level. It is different than managing. It is different than mentoring. And throughout your day as an executive or a leader or a team member or a peer or whatever, or as an employee, you're going to move between those things constantly. So assume someone comes in your office and says, I'm having a problem with the project. And you say, okay, what's the problem? Like, what are the obstacles? How are we going to deliver it? And in that conversation, they start telling you that they don't have confidence regarding the group that they're kind of leading people through this, or they're not confident in some element of that, right? Well, you might switch into mentoring and say, I dealt with that team before, and the way I dealt with that team is I did these 3 things, and it seemed to work for me. And they still might be, well, geez, I'm still a little concerned about that. Now you're going to switch into coaching mode. And coaching would be, what's the situation? And then you're going to listen. And then they're going to say things like, well, I had this interaction with this person, and how did that interaction affect you, right? What were you thinking at the time, right? You start asking questions. And as they dialogue, right, you have to, you kind of have to be with them, like in flow, right? So you know what flow is, right, Mike? You've been in flow, like you and I are in flow when we kind of talk about this stuff, or when we get off on a subject that we both get excited about, right? We're in that flow zone. We're totally connected. It's like our minds are connected. The whole world goes away, and here we are focused on each other. And that's the flow that you're looking for. And when you're in that flow, in a listening mode, right, you create this kind of like valuable dialogue that kind of takes it on a life of its own. When I think people are creative, resourceful, and whole, I also believe that they're going to come to their own solutions. I mean, I totally, and I've said this before, I believe that reasonable people come to reasonable conclusions when they process it properly or enough. Right? Even if it's a room full of people with very different backgrounds will come to the same conclusion. So certainly your coaching client or the coaching person, the person you're coaching will come to a reasonable conclusion that's going to work for them. And that's what you're looking for. Now, the difference is that when you're a manager and you're also playing the role of mentor and coach, you really have to separate the management stuff out of it. So in that coaching conversation in that example I gave, if they said to me, well, Russ, I'm not sure I can do this job, right? As a manager, I might think, oh no, God, I don't want you to not do this job. I might get all worried in my own head about that stuff. And I have to put that aside and say, well, tell me why. And what they're going to do is they're going to talk. So that's the difference between the 3 things. And it seems pretty clear, right? Managing is tactical, operational stuff, giving instructions, organizing, planning, communicating about what needs to be done. Mentoring is providing an experience, a place of experience, support, and advocacy for them. And then coaching is really creating this kind of situation where you're allowing them to solve their own problems in a deep way.
With coaching, it seems very intimate and personal. How do you help your clients or potential clients feel safe? Or how do you make them understand that time with you is a safe space to talk about some of their challenges or maybe their personal shortcomings? Because I know a lot of leaders have a hard time addressing maybe some of their shortcomings. So how do you create that environment for them?
That has to be done by relationship. And I would even say that even if you don't have a good relationship with somebody, as soon as you start coaching, the safety starts to come into play. But just a few things about safety, right? I'm not going to talk to you. I'm not going to tell my boss that I have a confidence challenge if I tell them that they're going to demote me or not promote me, right? I'm not going to be able to do that. So I have to have a relationship with my employees so they say, I know I can talk to Russ about these things, and I know he's not going to, put it on a list somewhere and bring it out when it's time for my raise, right? That's what people are worried about. And in a perfect world, if we're good partners, even if you work for me and we're good partners, I'm also mentoring you, which means I'm an advocate for you, right? And it also means I'm managing you. So I have to do all these things at the same time. So to create safety, I have to have that kind of relationship with them going in to make that happen, which is why leadership in general and culture is so important in your organization, right? But having said that, you can coach someone you don't even know. Someone you just met somewhere that all of a sudden starts to talk about something, and you can say, well, what's going on? You can just start asking. The fact that you're listening to them and the fact that you're in flow with them and you're kind of, looking at them and leaning in and paying attention to them, and they start feeling that connection, they're going to start talking to you about things. And once people have identified you as someone that is capable of doing that with them, you're going to be surprised how often they're going to come to you to do that, which is great. Now, what good managers will tell me at this point, they'll say, well, Russ, I don't have time to do this. right? It's like other things you hear, right? Well, I don't have time to do these things because it takes too much time and I'm not going to get my tasks done, right? But you're actually teaching people to fish rather than fishing for them, right? You're giving them this extra muscle. You're giving them this extra attention, which is going to make them totally productive and happy and resolved in what they're trying to do. So creating safety has a couple of components, right? So one is that flow, that relationship, and kind of being available to them and getting in that flow. Another one is just how you posture. Like if they're leaning in, and I'll do these demonstrations in front of groups. I don't even know these groups, right? Like there's 25 people in the room, and I'll pick someone at random and who would like to be coached on something, and someone will raise their hand, and we'll put 2 chairs in the middle of the room. Now I've never met these people before, right? Here I am talking to them for the first time, and there's 2 chairs in the middle of the room, and we're surrounded by people. And as soon as I sit down and I look down, and I look across and I say, you're with me now, right? Let's just focus on each other. And I say, what's going on? And as soon as I do that, it is like so hysterical. It's like all of a sudden they go, well, and they bring up something that like is critical and almost dangerous to bring up. I'm having a hard time managing up. My superiors have these, and I've done this with generals before, like army generals, right? Like all of a sudden they're like, well, this is the situation that's going on. It's completely transparent. And it's almost like everybody and I forget everybody else in the room, and they do too, because I asked them later, what did you think about the room, right? And they're like, I didn't even see the people there. Like we were in this flow. So the posture is important. So if they're leaning in, I'll lean in. If they're sitting back, I'll sit back. We call that mirroring, which is saying to them, I'm communicating with you at a different level. So we do those kind of things. Don't sit above people. I pay attention to where we're sitting, above or below. It's interesting. So after after we do this like exercise, and we usually get within 8 or 10 minutes, we get to some action. We'll stop and the room will applaud because they're like, and they're not applauding for me because I was performing. They're applauding because 2 people like actually did this thing like right in front of them, and it was deep, and people could relate to it. And people kind of watch somebody go into their head and kind of start resolving problems, and they watch their confidence grow, right? And it's like it's really kind of magical. So, and I don't want to minimize it, right? You certainly have to have some kind of connection with people. So that might take some warm up, right? It won't work if I get hired by someone and someone says, well, I don't really want to work. I don't really want to coach. Well, it's not going to work because they don't have the safety. There's all kinds of problems. So what I might do in that case is I might say, do you feel safe? And they might say, no, I'm not really sure. And I might say, well, listen, this is confidential. I'm not going to talk to your bosses about it. Right? I don't have a legal document that says that, but I just basically tell them, like, you can trust me. I'm here to help you. If they ask me what we talk about, I'm not telling them. Right? And then all of a sudden, it's almost like they believe me, which they should, because I wouldn't tell them. But now it's like, okay, we're getting a rapport here, and then they'll start giving me a problem that might be kind of critical to them, and might be scary, or it might be risky to them, and I'll start talking to them about it, and it's like magic. And I'll just tell you, and just defining yourself as someone that does that has power. So I walked into this. It was a senior executive at a very large national insurance company. And I was prospecting him. Someone had given me his name. They said I should meet him for networking reasons, not for any other reason. I was just meeting him as a peer to have a conversation and kind of, how can we find value with each other? And this office was huge. I mean, it had to be, 300 square feet. Top of a skyscraper. It was like this big giant room, right? And I'm sitting, he's sitting behind his desk, and I'm sitting in the chairs in front of his desk. And he says, I said, hi, I'm Russ Ouellette. Nice to meet you. This is what I do. And he says, good. He gets up from his desk. He walks around the chairs to his office, shuts both doors, comes back, sits down, and he says, I need your help. Now, All I told him was that I was a coach. I met him literally for 1 or 2 minutes. But the fact that he identified me as a coach, as a resource that might be able to help him, he was dying to talk about his challenges. And his challenges had to do with his career in the marketplace and how he was, the pressures that he had on him and some other things that were going on. He ended up hiring me and working with me for 2 years. It was just because I came to him as someone who will be the coach for you. So if you're a leader in an organization, right, and people don't feel safe, that's not going to happen. It's going to be very difficult, right? But if people feel safe, they feel like, you know what, he's got my back. He or she has my back. I know that if I talk to her, that she's going to listen to me and she's not going to make judgment. I know that when I have a conversation with her, it's in the vault. Like you would with your soulmate or your best friend or somebody like that. They know that. But and it doesn't mean that you do this all the time, because if you're working for me, I'm still going to have demands on you, and I'm still going to be hard on you, and I'm going to press you and push you, right? But I'm also going to take the time to know that as a human being, you need to work on some things, and we all do. And I always say, Michael, we're all coping. I don't know anybody that's not challenged with something in their life, and if not in this immediate moment, it's coming. Stuff's going to come to you, and knowing that we're all just coping and trying to figure it out is like a powerful thing. It's like when people will see you as a coach as someone that recognizes that the human condition is a little bit more complex than just getting the project done. So
now, is there a different approach when you're dealing with a client who needs more coaching when it comes to like personal feelings or like a crisis of confidence or challenges with their interpersonal skills compared to someone who has workplace dynamic challenges? Is there a different approach to that?
Those things that you just mentioned are connected. There's a dynamic, right? So if someone is not feeling, let's say, confident, or they're not motivated, or they're concerned, or they're anxious, or whatever's going on in that particular business situation, you can break those down to let's look at this logically. What are those things logically? But that's not where the problem lies. The problem lies in their own power and their own feelings and their own being about these things. A good example I can give you is I was with somebody just this week, and this person is a very senior, experienced professional. She has been nothing but successful in her life, but more recently she joined an organization where she was not. She had been used to doing things on her own. She's been used to doing things she had always been the boss. She had always been the CEO. She had the most shares, that kind of right. She had this agency. She had this power that she kind of had. Well, she went to a different firm, and in that different firm, she was, her situation was, I can't get my point across. I'm frustrated with the organization. I have these ideas and they don't listen to them. And it's frustrating to me. I feel like I'm always, and what I do is I'm regressing. I'm not being proactive. I'm not giving my advice. I'm holding back. I'm being too careful. And then she proceeded to tell me a tactical situation where she was recommending that they do something that seems like a no-brainer, but she kept getting the words from the corporate person saying, well, we're not going to do that right now. And she would say, well, why? And they would say, well, we're not sure, give me some more time. And she was getting stonewalled on it. And it was really upsetting to her, right? So that sounds like, you could, and I think most people would look at it as a rational problem, right? Or so when, do these three things, and that's not the solution. The solution is not her. She can come up with the planning. She wouldn't be in this job if she couldn't come up with the planning. The problem is that internally she had lost her power. Internally, she had lost her confidence. Her confidence was starting to wane. She thought, well, I used to have all these great influence skills, and now all of a sudden I don't have them anymore. And I feel like they're being stonewalled. And when I got her to kind of look at her own sense of power, it it shifted completely. And basically, and you and I maybe have talked about this before. I talked to her about having agency. I talked to her about, you are an agent of change. And I shifted the mindset from, you're not the boss anymore. Look at them as your customer, right? And when that shift happened in her mind, she said, oh my God, that's great. Like, that's the way I could approach it. And then she had a meeting that afternoon and called me later and said that it was great. She didn't get everything she wanted, but she sees the value in that, right? Another example, I'm with this 35-year-old, she's not an engineer. She's a teacher in a technical field. She had been a teacher in a technical field. She's 35 years old, brilliant, powerful presence, right? She's an owner of this business. And she's talking to me about how she can't get people in the organization to, do what she needs them to do. And it's almost like, it feels like she felt like they're not executing, they're not listening to me. I feel like they're not respecting me, that kind of thing. And so I reviewed with her logically. Well, you have a degree in this engineering area. You have 6 years experience with this company, never mind the 5 years experience you've had doing something else, right? You're an owner of the company, right? And you have more knowledge of these different subjects than they will have. And so as soon as she started thinking, so that's the logical part, but she couldn't get there. And then I started talking to her about her confidence. And it came out that she was, she'd always have a problem with confidence. She wasn't sure. She's always comparing herself to other people. So when I asked her to suspend comparing herself to other people, she started talking to me about, it went deeper and deeper and deeper. So what I'm trying to tell you is that these things are internal things, right? So, and here's a way to look at this. If a customer or a client or someone I'm coaching says to me, I can't get something done, or I can't get something accomplished, and we go into all this detail about what's going on, I ask them, we work on the shifting their mindset, right? Because it's their mindset that's stopping them. If they don't think of themselves as just the manager, but the agent of change, the person that has to, communicate with people, right? There's nobody else we can control except ourselves. And that's kind of the premise, right? Like, you can't control them. Don't think of it that way. Don't think of having to control them. They have to control themselves, but you can control yourself. And the things you do and the way you feel and your mindset about certain things are going to have, you're going to start seeing results, right? So those two things are totally linked. And when people think they're not, here's something else. If someone comes to me and they say, well, geez, I'm leaving a company, and we're not career coaches, so I don't go into companies and coach people on, moving to another job. I don't do that. First of all, I'm hired to work with them and make them better. But when they start going there, right, it feels like a safe escape route to them. So if this person, this woman that I was talking about a minute ago with all this experience and, having a lack of confidence, if she just decided to go to another company, guess what would happen? It would be the same thing, right? Until she resolves that internal conflict, until she resolves her sense of power and her sense of agency, her mindset about these things, these things are always going to happen. So, it's about really working on ourselves to work on other people. Now, that doesn't mean to say that as a coach, you might say, you always want to go, what's the next step? What are you going to do? What action are you going to take? You certainly want to go there, but really what we're working on is we're working on ourselves. We're not working on necessarily the situation. Yeah.
And that brings me to a really interesting question. So it's a little off topic, but it's something that I deal with personally. Do you see, or have you come across in a lot of your high functioning clients, this sense of imposter syndrome where you kind of feel like a fraud, like you don't belong, even though you may have the credentials and the experience and the skills, this imposter syndrome really prevents people from excelling? Have you had any experience with that?
Yeah, I mean, I've had experience with that myself. Just doing these videos and talking to you about this stuff is a little bit like who am I? I always feel a little bit about that. In fact, if it wasn't for the people around me saying, no, it's good, keep going, people like it, I wouldn't. It's hard. It's like you always have to work on that. I would say that most good people have some version of imposter syndrome. but they're working on muscles that they need to kind of work through. It's not unusual for, I mean, I get that all the time. Like, oh my God, like, why am I, why are they paying me so much money? I don't know why I got this. And by the way, a lot of CEOs, when I first work with a new CEO or a senior executive that just got that big job, to a T, everyone says, I don't know how I got here. I don't know, because they're stretching into something new. It's like my father used to say, you never reach your potential where you learn, right? So in other words, if I'm working for one person for a long time, they saw me as a young person or as a new employee in that particular role, right? They saw me that way and they saw me struggle through that. And some of that stuff kind of lingers in their mind. My father was a wise man. He says, sometimes you have to step into new things to kind of step away from that. Well, it's the same thing for people. You've been through all the struggles you've been through. You saw all your flaws. So part of that is like, well, what right do I have to be doing this? I'm not like one to say fake it till you make it, but at the end of the day, you really need to step into these new things, try these new things. If you don't have imposter syndrome, then either you're bored to death, or you might be self-actualized. That's good. That's a good place to be. Or you're not taking a hard enough look at yourself. You asked the question saying high-level successful clients. And yeah, people that think they know it all won't hire my company or me because A, they don't think they need to grow, or there's nothing to grow into, which is okay. Or B, they're protecting themselves from knowing the truth. We grow up thinking life is formulaic. Well, I'll go to school, I'll get an engineering degree, I'll go work for a company for 5 years, and maybe go to another company for 5 years, and then like it's formulaic. I know I need this job, that job. It's very tactical, and it works. I mean, you need to kind of have those experiences, but the problem, but people that are in that mode aren't self-reflective enough to know, okay, so because they're drinking from the fire hose, learning new things. At some point, they find themselves in a management position or a leadership position or a position of importance, running a project or something big, and they start noticing all these little things that they haven't been practicing for the last 10 years, like how to motivate somebody else, or how to give feedback to someone that's not performing well, or they forget all these things. Yeah.
Russ, so you mentioned values earlier when we were talking about the difference between managing and coaching. Can you tell us a little bit why values are important in coaching?
So values are like the DNA of our personalities, the values of the DNA of things that we're attracted to. Values are our operating system, right? It's like how we think about doing things. So for example, like Michael, I know that your values are really, it's an intellectual pursuit, right? You really want to produce quality work. I also know that you care deeply about your clients. Like those are values of yours. Those are things that are important to you. If I can't help you, like we're working together, if I don't deliver those to you, you're gonna be like, oh, I'm not meeting what you need. That's kind of what values are, right? So I can talk a little bit more about that. But I've told you before, I get annoyed when people say, well, younger people have different values than older people. That kind of annoys me because I know younger people that share exactly the same values as I do. Right. And that's like what we do is we make assumptions about culture or how or how they think about things. I know that I had a value of work-life balance since I started my career. I mean, I had children. I wanted to spend as much time with them. I had a value of exercise and keep myself strong. I had a value of, learning and new things. I had a value of connecting with people. Well, I know tons of young people that share those values. So we can't assume certain things. So I think people in general, good people in general, especially professional people, all people share a certain set of values. Values are a set of DNA operating systems about how we operate that are important to us. And so the question is so how do you use values in coaching? So how I use values in coaching is while I have conversations with people, I'm listening for their values. What is it about travel that you like?
It's exciting to experience different cultures, to gain a unique perspective of the world. Every time I go to a new country outside of the United States, I learn something, or I'm provided another perspective that helps me interpret, the world or my environment.
So tell me a story about one of those experiences.
We, on our honeymoon, one of our stops was in Thailand, and we were in Koh Samui, and we were at this really nice resort, and we wanted to go to the store. So we walked down to the 7-Eleven, funny enough. But right on the other side of the 7-Eleven were these tents in these shanties where it appeared to be outcast from the rest of the area that we were at. And it made me think of some of the challenges that we have in the United States, and that the way things look in a snapshot are not always the way that things are.
What I'm hearing from you is I hear values. First of all, you care about society and you care about people. You enjoy learning about other people's experiences and situations. You care about policy. You see what I'm saying? I can draw all of these things out of you by just asking you for a story. So if you're a manager, a leader, or peer, and you want to help somebody out, and you start coaching with them, while they're telling this story, well, he said this and she said that, and this is how I think about this, and they start explaining everything to you, you're listening a little deeper than just for the story. In fact, as a good coach, you don't even listen to the story. The story is not important. All this, rational logistics that they go through about how she said this and she said that, and then that happened and this happened. That's not the problem. What I'm listening to is the deeper understanding, so when this woman was talking to me about her job and how she wasn't committing to people, when I listened to her values, I understood that having a sense of confidence and knowing her domain was important to her. Her values are, I need to know what I'm doing. If it's important, I know what I'm doing. And it's important that I feel confident about stuff. So those as values instruct me now where to go. So when you're coaching, you're listening. So you're listening at several levels. There's a lot of concepts in here that might be confusing, but you're just listening at several levels. You're hearing the story. You're kind of listening at a level 2 for that, right? At a level 3, you're listening to the values story, the values that she's laying out for you, her operating system. She's telling you how she thinks about things. She's telling you what's important to her. With that information, I can then assess which values of her are being satisfied in this particular situation. And I can also assess which values are being stepped on. If she has a strong value of knowing her domain, right? Knowing her science, knowing her work, right? And someone says something to her that makes her feel like she doesn't know her domain, or that they know the domain better than her, she's going to lose. That value is so powerful that she's going to lose confidence, right? So you see how that kind of works. So you're listening at different levels. You're listening to hear, the underlying values that are going on. So with a set of values, if someone works for you and they've been working for you for 3 years, right? And I say to you, what's their values? You'll be able to tell me, because you know the stories, they've talked about their family. They've talked about their travel. They've talked about their dog. They talked about, they've shown their passion at work. They've been in situations where you can actually list their values and you know them. That's why knowing them is a little bit more helpful. But if you don't know them, like if I meet somebody for the first time and I don't know them very well, the first thing I do in that coaching is I ask them to tell me stories. Tell me about when you get your first promotion. Tell me about a leader that you like. Tell me what's your leadership philosophy. And then they might talk about, and then small talk, they might talk about their dog, right? Whatever happened, whatever they're going to talk about. And I'm kind of keeping an inventory of values, and I actually write them down, right? And I might write down 20 things. And then I can do an exercise with them where I give them back to them and I have them rate them and I can do all kinds of things with that. But just knowing those values settles me into who they are as a person, and then, what they care about. And what I'm looking for is consistency with those values being, supported, or those values being taken away. And then that helps me with the coaching. So values are extremely important. And we always consider those things when we talk about coaching.
How does listening help you formulate those powerful questions? Powerful questions kind of seems like a buzzword, but what is about those questions that you're asking that make them powerful or contribute to understanding them more?
Yeah, so listening is if I'm having a conversation with my neighbor, he just found out that there's a rut in the road from the spring that came up or something like that. As he's talking to me, I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, did it happen on my yard? Should I check my road? I'm not listening to what he's saying. I heard something and now I'm in my own head about what's going on, right? Versus, so if I'm with somebody, and they're talking to me and I'm trying to coach them and they start saying to me, well, I had this conflict with somebody, or I'm not sure how I feel about certain things. At level one, I'm saying, oh geez, how does that affect me? Geez, did I pick up the kids? Was I supposed to pick up the kids today? Like, it's like this dialogue I have in my own head. Also, it's something like, what's my next question? I don't know what to ask next. What's my next question? While I'm thinking about what the next question is, right, the person's talking and I'm not paying attention to what they're saying. So we call that level one listening. And we're all going to go into that. Right? We have to train ourselves to kind of put that away. Like it's like almost like mindfulness. You got to think of that as a blank. Try not to particularly do that. And with a little practice, you can do that fairly well. Level two listening is I'm listening to your words. I'm intent on what you're saying. I'm listening for values. I'm listening for contradictions. I'm listening for things that how things, map out. I'm listening to understand a little bit deeper, right? I'm listening for these things, right? Which is level, we call that level two. So that's where coaches are most of the time. But there's also level three. Now, so level three is like, what's going on here? So the best example I can give you is Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book called The Tipping Point. I don't know if you ever read that, Mike, right? It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool book. Basically says that we have these powerful intuitions that we don't use. And my philosophy is that these intuitions and this listening at this other level is inherent in us. It's like we probably have these great capabilities to do this, which have been kind of, worked out of us through the Industrial Revolution, right? Like I don't have to listen. I just have to get this machine through the shop, or I have to just get this task done, or I'm, so we're not we don't turn on those skills. Those skills come on when we feel a sense of crisis, or we get hyper focused on something. They might kick in. An example would be, we've all experienced when we've walked into the conference room, or we've walked into a room, and as soon as we walk in there, we have a vibe. Okay, something's wrong. Something's happened, right? Now, no one said anything yet, but our computers in our senses have told us, well, oh my God, we're having a meeting in the middle of the day. It's Friday before the holiday. I know that we had this discussion going on they were talking about this. There was rumors about that. Jim doesn't look happy, right? Like all these things start to come, and our computer says, and our sensitivity goes way up, and that's like level three. So while I'm coaching, you around some particular problem, and I'm listening to you at level two, and I'm hearing the contradictions, and I'm hearing the values, and I'm looking for things that are going on, but I also get a sense that you're sad, or I get a sense that, that you're different than you were last time, or maybe you're under a lot of pressure. Like I get this third level of, right, which then allows me to ask a whole series of different questions, right? So that's kind of like it can be much more complicated than that. I'm just making it extremely simple, right? We don't want to be at level one. We want to be at level two. We really want to be at level three. And by the way, in coaching, this is the way it works, right? If I'm coaching you and I say something dumb or doesn't line, you have to say to me, that's not it. It's something else. Like you have to do this together, right? It's not just, I might say, geez, I'm sensing something. Are you sad about something? Or are you nervous about this particular thing? And they might say, no, I'm not nervous. I'm concerned. Okay, well, great. Now but I sense something that took us off in a different direction. The safety, the values, and the listening lead us into what are powerful questions. We have one of my associates. She's brilliant. She'll be coaching somebody. She'll be coaching me. She'll be coaching wherever she's coaching. And somebody will say something. And she'll say, that's fascinating. and then she'll stop. And then the person says, oh, that's fascinating. Okay, well, let me tell you. Now they're off to the races and asking you a different thing. So whenever she wants to dig into something, she says, that's fascinating, and people go there. One of the things that I do is I say, tell me more about that. I want to know more about that. And the powerful questions have to come from a place of curiosity. Care, certainly, but curiosity. I am curious about this. I'm curious. Are you upset about something? I'm curious. What's really the issue here? You know, I feel like I'm sensing that this is not what you really want to talk about. So powerful questions can be as simple as that. They also could be things that they always have to be open-ended. You're not going to say, well, have you tried this? Well, that's what a mentor would do, right? Right. What a coach would do is say, tell me about the things you've tried, right? What kind of things can you try, right? What, you know, and these things aren't like, we can give you lists of powerful questions. We have actually, pages and pages and pages of powerful questions that we use at a workshop. But that's not where they come from. They come from your curiosity. They come from connecting with you, listening to you, hearing who you are and what you're about, and listening at level 3, trying to getting really curious. That's where they come from, and they're going to be obvious. The muscle, by the way, in practicing this is you have to, it does take some practice, but you always have to stay at level 2 and 3, and you always have to be asking questions that are open-ended. And that's kind of like how all that works. There's a couple other concepts that I really want to kind of, just talk about. There is this concept of gremlins or saboteurs. Different programs call them different things. I like to call them the internal lawyers in your head. So like this woman that I was talking to who said she didn't understand her domain, right? She was getting some sense that she didn't understand her domain, and that was making her feel uncomfortable. That is a self-belief of a little voice in her head saying, you're not good enough. You do not have an engineering degree. You haven't practiced enough. Who are you to think you are, right? That's the same thing that comes up like when you have imposter syndrome, right? Who are you to do this? Why are you doing this? What makes you so important? Who do you think you are, right? That voice, that's an example of a gremlin, right? The voice might just say, don't try it. It's too risky. No, you don't want to take that. I just got a call from a young friend of mine. I used to, she played softball with my daughter, and she's now like on her second or third job, and she sends me an email, says, hey Russ, I just wanted you to know I'm changing jobs again, and I'm not sure I should take this other position, and the boss says I'm selling myself short, but I really want to be happy, and so she's telling me all this stuff. She's got a lawyer in her head that's battling between, well, should I do practical work or should I do what I love? So this lawyer, she's got this like battle in her head about what those things are. And I just sent her an email back, what do you want? And then she said, oh my God, this is what I want. I already knew what I wanted. It was like that simple, right? Calling out that gremlin for her, right? The other thing so that's important. So people, we all walk around with these gremlins. They're trying to protect us from screwing up. They're trying to protect us from losing our job. They're trying to protect us from failure, right? That's not a bad thing. But when they take over, it's not a good thing. So what we're listening for in the coaching is we're listening for these lawyers. We're listening for these, what is their mindset? Why do they have this? What's self-talk? I like to say there's a self-narrative. And I just said this to somebody a couple weeks ago. They said, well, I said, that's your self-narrative. That's not true. Well, what do you mean it's my self-narrative? I mean, everything you said, does it really make sense? Well, this is the kind of person I am, and this is how I operate. And right, it's like this narrative that they've already created, which is the lawyers telling them how it is versus opening up and saying, what are the possibilities? Could I be different? Is there something different I can do? So that's kind of the gremlins or the saboteurs or the lawyers in your head, whatever those are. And the other thing is I'm always listening for contradictions. You'll be surprised how often someone will tell you a story or they'll tell you a situation, and then they'll tell you a situation about something else, which is in complete contradiction to what they said before. And then I'll just say, how is that different from what you told me before? And they'll go, oh my God. It's like, so, and there's lots of contradictions in our narratives, right? Again, we're trying to cope. We're trying to figure it out. We're trying to maneuver through like all of these different ideas. We're trying to maneuver through our intuition, through our gremlins, through our values. We're trying to move through all these things constantly. And it's kind of hard sometimes to sort it out. And what a coach does helps you sort it out. And it's so cool to see the resolve people have. Someone says, I have to give this person feedback, and I'm really afraid of it. I'm not sure that they're going to react badly, and I'm not sure how, it's going to create risk, and there's all this stuff that's going on. And we'll coach them for a few minutes, and we'll get to the point about coming up with a plan. We'll get to some point, and we'll come up with a plan. So what do you want to do about it? By the way, that's something you always do in coaching. At the end of the coaching session, you have to leave them with some action. So what are you going to do about it? Well, I'm going to do this. Well, I'm going to do that. And this is how I'm going to do it. And the resolve, it's like a beautiful thing, right? And they go away, and they nine times out of 10, they'll call me back and say, oh my God, the conversation went great. It wasn't even what I thought. In fact, they're excited about the change, right? Like, it's like you approached it. You resolved it. So that's another big part about coaching is you need to kind of, not only deal with all of these things, but you need to also push people to find some level of action that they're going to take, right? And my philosophy is if I give you an action, or you give yourself an action, I say, Michael, what are you going to do? And you say, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go research this and do these 3 things, and I'm going to have this conversation with that guy, and I'm going to try to figure it out. Now, if I call you back, or I go to my next meeting with you, or like I run into you and I say, how'd it go? And you say, I didn't do it yet. My perspective is it was the wrong action. Your computer's still working that out. So what are you going to do now? Well, you know what I've decided to do? I've decided that I'm going to call him first, and then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to see him next week. Right? So that's the way you got to look at it. I'm partnering with you. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not your boss.
Do you think there's a level of accountability that people feel with coaching? So, you said, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to do it? And if I am committed to doing that because of you, like I have you to be accountable to, like, do you feel like that is an important piece?
I think it could be, anybody you feel accountable to. I've had a coach for 15 years, right? If I tell her that I'm going to do something, I better damn well do it, because when I get in that meeting, she's going to say, why didn't you do it? And I'm going to tell her why, and then she's going to take me in a different direction. But generally, I have to do the homework, right? And the thing about that, this is what's great about an ongoing coaching relationship. What's good about that is that you have, that relationship is so powerful. It's almost like, and they're not going to make judgments for you. So I want to do it to advance what we're trying to work on. I have a responsibility as the coachee to advance what we're working on. It's not just all her, it's also me. So I think that maybe the coaching relationship does have an impact on that. But, certainly when my partner asks me to do something, I'm accountable to her for that. When if my daughter wants me to do something, I'm going to be accountable to that. If I have to go have a conversation with my neighbor about something, I'm going to be accountable to that. It's like, we have to all work with accountability, but I think that if I was your boss, Michael, and I asked you to do something, I didn't ask you, but we agreed, we negotiated, we coached through whatever we did, and you said you were going to take care of that. And the next time I see you, you're probably going to have taken care of it. If not, you're going to tell me why you didn't do it, and you're going to give me a thought process of what happened or why you didn't do it. So I think that I never thought about this before. I don't know if it's because we're the coach. I think it's just because we're someone that we committed to in a good relationship, right? In this constructed relationship that we also need to take advantage of. It's almost like another way to think about it is like going to the gym. If you don't go to the gym, you're not gonna see any improvements. So don't go to the gym. But if I go to the gym and I have a trainer there, I don't want to show up not prepared for that trainer. So maybe there is a little bit of that accountability, but yeah. But I mean, you can be accountable to anybody. And usually it's not necessarily, and again, it's about what intentions you make. There is research that shows when you say things out loud, when you make intentions about doing certain things, that it's an intention and you'll follow through on them. So I think it might have a little bit more to do with that.
Russ, so earlier you mentioned the drama triangle, and that's not something I'm familiar with. Can you tell us a little bit about the drama triangle?
Yeah, so I'm not taking credit for this. This is the Conscious Leadership Group, which is fantastic. The drama triangle is kind of a way of sorting through where you are in a particular situation. If you and I are doing something together, and there's a conflict of something, or we're not connecting, or something's not particularly right. In a drama triangle concept is that there's really 3 roles that people play in any conflict or any bad situation, and it creates drama. So what does drama come from, right? If you think of a triangle, right, you have 3 roles. Somebody is the victim. I can't believe he did that to me. He's a jerk. Why do I always have to get my reports in early, right? There's the victim. And somebody's the persecutor, right? The villain. The villain is the person that's making me do this. Why is he making me do those reports, right? There's a little drama there, right? So there's like a conflict. And then somebody else plays a role of the hero. So why is he giving you, I don't know why he's giving you those reports. That's dumb. You shouldn't have to do those reports. And what that creates is this creates a drama that continues and persists. Most people are in that situation, right? So, they're not respecting my decisions. I'm the victim, they're the villain. Why don't they do what I say that they would do? Why aren't they advanced that project? And then they talk to somebody about it. Maybe they talk to their boss, or they say, yeah, you know what, you're right. Let me call them and straighten that out. Hey, why are you making her do those reports? That's drama. What's the other person gonna say? Well, I have to do those reports. That's not my problem. That's your job. It's gonna be this whole kind of thing that doesn't get resolved. Now, assume that this person comes to me and says, they want me to do all these reports. And these reports are really a waste of our time. And, I told them that 3 times, and right, there's the drama, right? And I don't be the hero. Now I be the coach. Well, I'll listen to the story for a little while, right? And then at some point I'm going to say, what is it we want to do about that? How do we want to resolve this? And now what I'm doing is I'm not saving them. I'm not buying into this conflict. I recognize there's a situation, but in order to resolve the situation, it's not going to be me, getting in the middle of it and making it worse. It's going to be me trying to help resolve the situation. Now, and I'm going to resolve it with them. So what is it we can do? And I might turn in my mentoring hat. What things have you tried? I've tried this, I've tried that. What do you want to do? What do you want to do next? And then through the coaching, the person's going to say, well, I probably should sit down with them and, maybe think about how to, right? So, and now what they do is now they go and they approach the conflict in a different way. And now you don't have drama. Now you're creating things together. Right? So the drama triangle and the conscious leadership concept is it's below the line. When you're in that drama, you're below the line. And when you're out of drama, you're above the line. You're being creative. You're solving problems, right? You're creating the environment that can be productive. As a coach, we're constantly considering people can be below the line. Michael, you and I are going to get below the line 3 times today. I mean, we're going to go below the line maybe 10 times today. But it's our ability to pull ourselves out of that, which is going to make us successful and responsible and do the right thing and be more mature about stuff, right? So we have to learn how to pull ourselves out. Sometimes these situations are really too complex. Your company just got sold and now you have a new role. You just got promoted and you're afraid of something. You want to create change, but you're not sure how to do it, right? All of these things we want to come from a place of creation, right? Which is when I started. Coaching is about now and the future, right? And it's about you controlling yourself. And that's what we're trying to do, get people above the line. But I would really suggest people go Google the Conscious Leadership Group, take some of their programs. I've taken some of their programs. They're fantastic, really, really sharp stuff, very valuable, and you can create a whole coaching program around some of that stuff. So it's really, really good stuff, and certainly we use it, and we love it. It's great stuff.
Russ, you did a really great job, I think, today helping us understand the difference between coaching and mentoring. If you could leave one thing for people listening and watching us today, what would that be?
Michael, I know I probably made it more complicated than it should be. From that perspective, I'm telling you, it's really not that complicated. There's a few muscles that have to be practiced, right? And the first one is listening, creating safety, listening to people, being curious, using your intuition, and really caring about them. No judgment. Be that person that they can go to. If you could practice these skills, maybe take a program or learn a little bit more about it. But if you could practice these skills in real situations 3 times, you will be looking for problems to solve. You'll be walking around the office looking for drama. And you'll say, I got that problem. I'll take care of that. And you'll start practicing it, and you'll be a practice coach, really. And so the value of all of this is great. And it's great, it's great that, I have a coach. It's great that, I've got clients that want a coach, and that's really good. How we're really going to have an impact in everything is certainly, mindfulness and emotional intelligence, these other things. It's if we all practice coaching skills, and we're never going to always get it right. But if we all practice coaching skills and we listen more to each other, and we looked for reasonable people to come to reasonable conclusions, we would solve so many problems as in society. What I want for businesses to do is I want the leaders to be modeling these skills, but really model it and allow other people to adapt those skills. Right? Like I always talked about the tipping point. If you can get enough people in the organization to be coaching each other, drama will disappear. And people will be satisfied, and they'll be stronger, and they'll be confident, and all of those social anxieties and contradictions that we have and problems that we have are going to kind of go away. So coaching can be extremely powerful, but the more of us that do it, the more powerful it's going to be.
Hey, Russ, thanks so much for this chat this week, and I'll catch up with you next week.
Nice to see you, Mike. Be good.